All right, I have 12:02 Eastern, so we are going to get started. Again, welcome everybody to our session on content creation with Copilot. This is designed to be an informative and interactive session, so I will definitely encourage everyone here to practice alongside as we're creating content with Copilot. So before we get into our session, just a brief introduction for myself as your trainer. My name is Allison Hughes. I'm a learning strategist on the Evolve 365 team here with Planet Technologies. And I've had the privilege of helping many organizations roll out Copilot successfully. And I do know how overwhelming it can feel to learn essentially what is a whole new workflow. So the goal for today is to simplify that process a little bit, get some real examples and real demos that are things that we can start using right away. We also have a whole great group here of people, so we're going to work together to help answer your questions, anything that comes up. So please feel free to ask those in our meeting chat throughout the session as we go out the day. I personally have been on my journey of getting to experiment and utilize Copilot. I've definitely learned a lot along the way. While everything that's surrounding this tool is developed to be easily accessible, we can use our natural language patterns to begin. It's in some ways very straightforward. In other ways, we don't want to think that we should consider the fact that there is a learning curve. So using any generative AI is basically a whole new workflow for most of us. And from my own personal experience, I can say we really need to be patient with the process, with ourselves. Don't be afraid to explore and try new things when you can. So today's session is really all about like what you can do. So with that being said, the next thing that we'll explore is our, hold on a second. Okay, the next thing that we're going to explore is our agenda. Okay, so the agenda, fairly straightforward. We're going to go into an overview of what Copilot Chat is. We'll go into creating content, and then we'll talk about some tips for what, when you're doing these, what's called prompts, what is helpful for creating effective prompts. I would really love to start us off with a little bit of an icebreaker. So one question, I'm going to drop this into the chat. If you could just let me know or share with the group here. What is either a daily or a weekly task that is currently taking up a ton of your time? For many of us, it could be things like, for me, I know it's catching up with messages like emails or Teams messages. Sometimes it's getting like summaries like of all the things that had happened in a specific time period. Maybe it's like getting updates on a specific document, like what was changed, especially if it's something that I'm collaborating with a team on, and I'm like, there's all these people interacted, but all these changes are happening and it's so great and we're developing content, but what exactly has changed? How can I find that information? I see some things in the chat like generating meeting agenda content, yes, approving workflows in the ERP, maintaining calendars, setting up meetings, scheduling. Yeah, I hear all of this. And I'm sure that other folks here in our call can certainly relate to those tasks that are taking up our time and really in some ways taking us away from doing the work that really matters, right? The stuff that the high impact kind of work. So before we really go anywhere with our session today, we need to talk about the importance of safety and being safe when you're using AI-powered chat. So at this point, right, AI is very much a buzzword, and the generative tools that are coming onto the market that we are hearing about are incredibly popular. They can allow us to do things like summarize long documents, create new and professional content for our teams or for, our students. They're supporting us across almost every step of our existing workflows. These tools can provide us with assistance and help us with creating or rephrasing already existing content, adjusting for different audiences or grade levels. And I really want to emphasize how important it is that when we're working with AI services within our systems, that we're using approved AI services. Um, Given how many of the generative AI tools that function and grow with our knowledge, there is a potential risk of unintentionally exposing personal or confidential data if we're not using the tools, the AI tools that are approved for us to use. Fortunately, the good news is that Copilot, when you're signed in with your work credentials, helps you ensure that you have data integrity, meaning your data is secure in your environment, and it applies what Microsoft describes as their enterprise data protection, referred to as EDP. So if you're already signed in with your Microsoft applications and you're using your Copilot with your Microsoft login credentials, you're getting that enterprise data protection. So more or less, the bottom line is that many AI tools do not protect the data. When you use Copilot, however, with your work account, those enterprise data protections apply immediately when you're logged in. So what that basically means is that any data you're using within your environment, right, with your login credentials, that data is staying safe and secure inside of your organization's tenant, your environment, and it is not being used to train the AI model. So before we dive deeper, a little bit about when we talk about the environment and some specifications, helping us to figure out which environment we're in. And sometimes this matters because of the kinds of features and the access to some of the tools and all of that. So in our organization, it's probably for most of us is a commercial enterprise, what's called the enterprise commercial cloud. So this applies most frequently with private sector, higher education. And it's for us, for most of us here, that's probably the cloud that we're in, enterprise or commercial cloud. There may be some differences in feature availability due to the specific security requirements. Today, we're going to focus on this enterprise commercial experience. Now, what happens when Copilot is in this environment? It's sitting inside of the already existing Microsoft 365 trust boundary, which is the boundary that already protects our files, emails, Teams chats, SharePoint sites, OneDrive files, all of that. So Copilot isn't a separate system. It's actually it's layered on top of that security and compliance, those controls that our organizations already have in place. In the commercial cloud, Microsoft operates secure data centers around the world. Your organization chooses where its tenant is hosted. So, for example, if it's in North America, Europe, or another region. But the key takeaway being that Copilot is going to honor the same data residency decisions that the tenant already follows. So it doesn't suddenly move your content to another random location. It stays within the Microsoft 365 environment that the IT team has already approved. Next on this slide, you'll notice some compliance alphabet soup. ISO 27001, SOC, GDPR. These are widely recognized independent security and privacy standards. Microsoft 365 and therefore Copilot in the commercial cloud is built to meet these requirements. That means things like strong information, security management controls. That's what ISO 27001 is, independent audits through SOC reports, and alignment with GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation for organizations that have to manage EU personal data. So, of course, we don't have to remember these acronyms. Really, the important part is that Copilot is not operating separately off to the side. It's inheriting the same enterprise-grade compliance posture as the rest of Microsoft 365. The third point here is encryption in transit and at rest. So anytime Copilot is accessing your organization's content, whether that's a Word document, a Teams chat, or a SharePoint file, that data is encrypted while it's moving between the services and while it's stored on disk. So prompts, the context that Copilot looks like, and the responses it generates are all being protected using the same encryption that already secures your email and files today. All right, so now that we've got that very important part under our belt, let's talk about Copilot Chat. So Copilot Chat. If you're like me, you've been using search engines for a very long time. Now, that experience has provided us with a very specific and somewhat comfortable way of working, right? Typing in keyword searches. This is what we've done before. Copilot and Copilot Chat is a new way of working. It goes beyond the keyword-based searches to reason over our prompts, which our prompts are essentially our questions, our requests, our instructions, our chats, and responding to those questions, prompts in a conversational way using natural language. So what that means is when we're in our Copilot chat, we actually are going to engage with it in an ongoing dialogue. We're going to ask our questions, give our instructions, ask follow-up questions. We're going to request examples. We're going to add content. We're going to ask Copilot to make adjustments, all along the while refining that output. That gives us the opportunity to do things like better understanding information, exploring ideas, and of course, creating content that fits our needs and our roles. So another way to think about Copilot Chat is like a personal work assistant for you to bounce ideas off of and incorporate it into your workflow. I'm there to help you speed up everyday tasks. Now, today we're going to focus on content creation, but beyond the creation, we do have great capabilities with Copilot to do things like summarizing large amounts of information, providing suggestions, and giving us insights onto our already existing content. Now, Copilot here is great as a drafting partner. Now, I don't know about you all here, but I know for me, I would find it a lot harder to start from scratch than to revise something that already exists. So for example, if I have to create a lesson plan or a syllabus, if I'm looking at that screen and I'm starting from scratch, that's going to be a lot harder for me than if I already have a draft and then I can revise that draft with my own expertise to make it better. So this is where Copilot is our kind of our primary line of support here in as a drafting partner. So Copilot Chat can help when you're in situations like you don't know where to start or you need a first draft. Maybe you need ideas or structure or just like a variation or to adjust for different audiences, different lengths of time. All of these are things where Copilot can help us. Ultimately, you are the one that will stay in control. So while Copilot is there generating suggestions and drafts, you get to decide what will ultimately get used and modified. So when we want to access Copilot, there are some locations, there's a few different, and some of this is going to depend on the feature availability in our own individual environments. But where do you find Copilot? We'll have multiple access points. Today, we're going to be looking at it in a browser. We're going to go to the website. I will put that link in the chat for us here. If you're using Edge, you might find it in the sidebar. It may also be available in a desktop application, a mobile application if available, and then integrated into some of the other Microsoft applications, potentially finding it in Outlook or in Teams, again, all based on feature availability. So to get started chatting, which we're going to do here next, you are going to really simply get started chatting with Copilot, asking a simple question, just like you would if you were speaking with a colleague. So that might be something like write in the chat, in the prompt box, you're going to say, summarize this document. You're going to attach a document that you want Copilot to summarize. And then once Copilot summarizes summarizes that, you can respond to it, asking it to do something like reformat it for a different output, turn it into talking points for an upcoming meeting, get you a summary, a one-page summary, and then you can, of course, have Copilot adjust it for different audiences. Maybe we're speaking to, adjusting that summary for our students at a specific grade level, or if we're giving that presentation to another team, or we're sharing it out with our team. Additionally, maybe we want specific details summarized, we want to drill down further into specific topics or modify those explanations a little bit. Copilot can help to easily tailor that to the task or the workflow. All right, so here is the fun and exciting part. We're going to actually, I'm going to switch away from my slides here and share my screen. So we should be looking at my screen here in a browser. Now, this is the link that we want. So here is where you all get to practice alongside with me. The link in the chat, again, I would say just make sure that you are logged in with your credentials, right? So using the browser that you are already typically using with your work content, your work account. Maybe if you're going to the Outlook, the web, things like that, just use that same browser. Okay, but how do we make sure that we're logged in? So here's how we check a couple of things we can look for. First, we want to navigate down to the bottom left-hand side. And we're going to look for our name. Now, of course, this isn't my name, but this is a demo account. So this is what I use to practice and to share. So I want to select on this. So you all should see your name. And you can click on that and you should see your email address. Now, if you see your email address, the next thing you want to check is kind of going into the opposite upper corner. So the upper right-hand side, we want to see a green shield. So look for that green shield. That is a thumbs up for us. That means that we have enterprise data protection. This is what we want to see, as we were talking about earlier. So when you're working in your environment with your Microsoft credentials, you're logged in, you've got your data protection, which is so very important. So now that we're logged in, a little bit about this area. If you have, for those of us that are using it, right, we're going to be working in the browser. We got the data protection. We have a couple things on the screen. Kind of in the main area of the screen is this Copilot prompt box. This is where we get to type in our prompts. This plus sign is our opportunity to add files, so we can reference our content. We'll also find some of these like suggestions for us that we can always click on and start to see and use these as an opportunity for us to get started working with Copilot. So I think these are really helpful and great practice at any time. I always appreciate things that are helping me to kind of organize my time as well. So if I have like an upcoming project that I need to get to the deadline, even if I don't follow it, like closely, it does help me to kind of reflect periodically, like, am I making progress? So some of these, like, how can I, any of these, like catching up, summarizing, finding content. If you select those three dots, it's going to take you to the prompt lab, which is some of the additional prompt suggestions. These are again, super helpful for getting started with Copilot. Hopefully you all are able to log in and check this out. Now, let's see, what else do I want to point out here? If you are working with Copilot Premium, there will be a toggle at the top center of your screen. That is the work web toggle that allows you to toggle between being in your environment, your work environment, versus going to the web and sourcing information publicly from the internet. Just briefly on that work web toggle, if you're seeing it kind of in the top of your Copilot chat screen, work toggle is generally going to be used for anything that is work specific content. Anytime you're working with your work files, your work data, keep that work toggle turned on. But if you're going to the web, let's say you just need the latest updates on like a specific news topic or anything like that, that's not specific to your work content, your work data, you're going to go to the web to gain that, to gather that information, just like you would be like searching in a search engine for that information, but you're not going to be using your work content in the web. All right, so let's get started chatting. I'm gonna do a demo here, and feel free to modify, feel free to check out any of those prompt suggestions as well to get us in there and kind of getting our feet wet with prompting in Copilot chat. So let's ask Copilot to create a short, I'm gonna do short just for our demo purposes here today, a short 5-question quiz on, and we can all add our own kind of topic in here today on I spelled quiz wrong, on on the topic of creative writing on a freshman college level. That includes a mix of multiple choice and short answer questions along with an answer key and one common misconception that students might have about this topic. I mean, this is very broad, but of course, feel free to modify this. So maybe instead of creative writing freshman college level, you can do it for your specific subject, grade level, etc. Modify it. Modify any of that according to how you would like to prompt Copilot to just practice getting it to create content for you that you can actually utilize. So let's prompt that over and see what Copilot says for us. All right, so pretty quickly, Copilot has started to design a quiz. We've got multiple choice. Which of the following is most important when developing a fictional character? What's the primary purpose of imagery in creative writing? A short answer, define point of view in creative writing and name one common point of view. Multiple choice, which of the following best describes conflict? Okay, we've got another short answer to describe a setting that creates a mysterious mood. And then we have our answer key. Common misconception is that good creative writing is based only on inspiration and natural talent, when in reality, while creativity is important, strong writing also requires practice, revision, feedback, and mastery of writing techniques such as characterization, plot development, and imagery. So now what I get to do is choose where to go next with this content. If I wanted to, let's say like copy this into a Word document, I have the option to select this copy button at the bottom of the output. So that allows me to simply click on that. Now, I don't really see too much happening on my screen. It's now copied to my invisible cloud clipboard in a way. And then what we get to do next is, let's say, like open up a Word document and insert it into that Word document. So we can even do that here. I'm going to go to my apps. I'm going to get into Word Online. Just going to create a blank document. And now what we're gonna do is basically now like I copied that content from the chat and we're gonna paste it into this Word document. So of course we have our kind of basic paste. So this is that clipboard that I'm referring to that it's now currently copied onto. We get a few paste options. You can paste it as is, you can paste text only. If you have a formatting that you would like, you can paste it to merge with the formatting if there is already formatting on this document. Now, right now it's not, there's nothing. So I'm going to do a simple paste and there's that content in here. So we're going to save this here as a, we're just gonna call it creative writing quiz. It's going to save to my OneDrive. And we can also, let's say you're looking at that and there's some questions in there that we don't really like. Maybe, let's see, I like so the short answer, let's say for number 5, I wanted to come up with a different question. Up with a different question for 5 short answer. So here's where we're kind of engaging in that sort of dialogue. And if the output isn't quite aligned with what I want, I can ask Copilot to rewrite it. I now have another example of a question, and I also have my content from the actual quiz, and we can choose where to go with that from here. All right, so let's see. Now, this is just our first demo, right? We're going through, we're starting to think about how we can create content in our chats with Copilot, and we've done our first demo with creating a quiz. So just an opportunity to look at one way of doing it. We're going to look at some other ways as well now. So jumping back to our slides. Content creation, right? So 3 things to keep in mind, 3 steps just for our prompting and our Copilot experience. The first is to enter your prompt or your instructions for whatever you want Copilot to create into the prompt box. Be as detailed as possible in your instructions and include any source information that you want Copilot to use in its creation process. I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment, but that is that plus sign in your prompt box. If you want Copilot to reference content, that's where you're going to source that information. If it's nothing that's like really like super duper long, you can, let's say it's just like a paragraph and you want Copilot to maybe create another paragraph that follows that style. You can have Copilot, you can just paste that paragraph into the prompt box. And just my hesitation is if it's really long, you might hit like character limits in the prompt box. So if that is the case, let's say you like pages and pages, just turn that into a document, save it to the appropriate location, the cloud location, and then just attach it. Once you get your output from Copilot, first what you can do is check the sources of information. So if it's referencing a file, did it source any documents that you attached exclusively, or did it pull in new sources? Do you want it to do that? If you don't, tell it to not do that, right? Give those instructions to Copilot, validate any sources of information for accuracy and appropriateness. And then next is to continue that conversation. So what refinements would you like to make to that content to make it better? Instruct Copilot to refine your document, maybe based on an audience, new source material, changing factors, etc. So for example, you can ask for that quiz.Maybe I need to change that more for a graduate level creative writing class, or maybe tailor it back to a high school or middle school level, right? So this is probably one of the things that I like best about Copilot is its ability to tailor to different audiences, also to different lengths, right? So it can expand on that as we need it, but it's all really giving us a place to start. So emails and messages, right? All of us are probably in a place where emails and messages are not our favorite experience in our work, in our day-to-day. But Copilot can help you get started with your messages, especially if you're short on time and you have, let's say, like bullet points or notes or a rough idea, and it's going to turn that into a draft. It can also help with improving clarity and tone, making sure that your messages sound professional, easy to understand, of course, while we are staying in control. And Copilot suggesting the draft, we get to review it, edit it, personalize it before we send it over, especially helpful for just routine or regular emails, sending quick updates. So if you've ever rewritten like the same missing assignment email 5 times in 1 week, this is where Copilot becomes incredibly valuable. Instead of drafting from scratch every time, you can provide your intent, let Copilot generate a first pass that you get to personalize before you send it. Copilot can also act like a writing coach. So sometimes I'll use it to look at something and help me adjust how the message comes across. Maybe I need it to sound more friendly or more formal, depending on the specific audience. It's useful if you're not sure how something might sound, or you're looking at it and you know there's maybe something about it you want to change, but you're not quite sure what. Copilot can suggest things like wording changes, improving clarity, and reducing any potential ambiguity. But always review and decide what to keep. Copilot's offering the suggestions. It's not ever going to make any automatic changes. So we're now going to just practice drafting communications. Let's see, I'm going to jump back to my demo here. And let's see, I want to take a look at where. So I'm now in my Outlook. If you want to try to follow along here in Outlook, please feel free, highly encourage. We should see our Copilot experience showing up. Potentially, you'll see it on the left-hand rail. Again, this is going to vary depending on your settings in your specific environment. If you're not seeing what I'm sharing, there is always our chat experience, right? So we get to start a new chat. And if you're not seeing it the same way I am, you can do pretty much the same stuff in your Copilot chat experience. Okay, so Outlook. And now we're going to come over to, so Copilot, anytime you see that little like wavy circular multi-rainbow colored logo, that is Copilot. Anytime you see something like even with little sparkles, that's usually an opportunity for you to engage with Copilot. And it's showing up in a lot of places, as you've probably already seen. So we have Copilot chat even in Outlook. So we're going to try to do this with attaching content. So let's try this. Let's see how this goes. We are going to draft a clear and supportive email to my students explaining the late assignment policy in this attached syllabus, and include how they can request an extension. Okay, so now I'm going to attach that file. Select to attach. There's a couple different ways we can do this. I'm going to see if I can find the one that I'm thinking about here from my work files. Okay, so not there. And sometimes you have to kind of look for your stuff. Let's see if I might need to close it. Oh, here it is. Perfect. All right, so we're going to attach this. We're going to select the item, and noticing it's now showing up in the prompt box. And we are going to send that over. Let's see what Copilot has come up with. It's actually still thinking. So there are some things about this that I would like to change. Now, I'm looking at this here as its output, right? And so my flow, my typical flow here, if this was something I was doing not in like a live training session, I'm going to be reading through this and making sure that the wording, the explanations, this is aligned. It is referencing the syllabus in its output. This is an important part to note, that it is using that file as the source of information for the email. This means that we're getting the same updates, right? So looking forward to our semester together. I want to take a moment to explain our late policy. So right? We have the late policy here for weekly writing exercises for major assignments. The portfolio will only be accepted up to 24 hours late without approved documentation. Um, Technology problems generally not considered an acceptable reason. Encourage you to save your work. That's what cloud locations are, cloud storage, requesting extensions, how to do that, reviewing these on a case-by-case basis. So couple things here that I noted. We have, this is basically written from the perspective of looking forward to our semester together. I want to take a moment. Now, let's say, for example, and I didn't specify that anywhere here. So Copilot had to make some assumptions about the time of when I would be sending this email. Let's say we're like getting about halfway through the semester and I noticed that I'm sending that email multiple times out to individuals. So instead, I'm gonna ask Copilot to rewrite this email from the let's say this email. Let's say I'm trying to figure out how to say this to now that we are halfway through the semester. All right, let's see how Copilot does with that. Otherwise, I think the content looks pretty good, aligned to what I was talking about. Great. Mid-semester reminder, assignment deadlines, and extension requests. So now we have, as we moved into the second half of the semester, I want to send a quick reminder about our late work policy and the process for requesting extensions, staying on top of deadlines, et cetera. Okay, and then basically all the rest is pretty much the same as it's just mostly more reminder. Okay, so let's say this is good to go. If I needed to do anything like make it shorter, change it for a different audience, all those are things I can continue to do by prompting Copilot. But what I'm going to do is do that kind of copy response to the cloud clipboard feature. I'm going to copy that. So that's now copied to my cloud clipboard. I know there's not a lot to see when it does that. So it's just, you may get a little prompt like this that says response copy, but it is copied to the cloud clipboard. It's also saved in my chat history in my Copilot chat. So I can always revisit that at any time. But now we're going to pop back to our Outlook. We're going to draft an email and I'm going to do that paste here. We do have the paste features within Outlook and we're going to drop that in. So this is where we're going to review this information, right? So there's a couple things about this that me as the sender of this email, I need to look at ahead of time. For example, Copilot has a way of communicating with us, right? So it's saying things like, as we're now midway through the semester, it makes sense. So that's not something I want to include in my email. So we're going to take this out. So we're going to review this. We're going to move some things around. And like these links here, we don't necessarily, or maybe we do, right? Maybe we want to keep that attached. You can take it out if you want. We're going to read through and maybe we're going to say that's good to go. We have all the information we need here and we get to send that off to anybody that we need to, right? So we're going to add that information and then we're going to pop it on over. All right. So just to note, like that is a way to create that in a different location and send that email. But what if I needed to come back to that chat, right? Where did that go? So we're going to check that out in our chat history of our Copilot chat. That's that link that we looked at in the beginning. I'm going to refresh it because right now it's not popping up, but it should show up here. There it is. Okay. Sometimes it takes a second. So even though I did that in Outlook, the chat history is going to save across our Copilot chat experience. Now, what I'd like to do is take that and we're going to rewrite that email as a Teams message. So we're going to ask Copilot, so now I can maybe go post this into Microsoft Teams. So we're going to say, rewrite this email formatted as a brief, concise Teams chat message, reminding students on upcoming deadlines and the late policy. Maybe we want to keep the tone light and friendly because it's a Teams chat message. And all right, perfect. We're gonna say this looks right. Of course, again, human in the loop. Read this more. We only had so much time here in our demo, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but of course, we're going to reference that. We're going to note the sources again, which is what we want to see. And maybe just for fun, we want to add emojis for clarity. So we're going to try this auto prompt, send that on over just for fun. And let's copy that, come over to Teams. And let's go to, let's look at our teams here. And we're gonna maybe say, I know this isn't the topic, but in our demo, we're gonna post that over here. And let's post that on in. We wanna modify it a little bit. One thing I'm noticing here is that I would like to, let's say, for example, like you don't need to include that link or you don't want to. This has actually been something that I recently started doing with my Copilot chats is, oh, I'm just going to send this off. And I want to come back to that chat here and point out like, so, as we noticed in that Teams post that there are these links here. So maybe you don't want that, right? So you can, so this little, that's where this is coming from, this little reference here. We're going to say rewrite the Teams post and remove reference links. Maybe remove all reference links. Because I've already validated that that source of information is correct. So now if I wanted to, and I would, so I don't need to go back and modify that Teams post and remove it, I can copy it just as is, and I don't have to do any of that modifying. You can also ask it to remove like any of the other information that you want, and as we can note how fast Copilot can do that for us. Okay, so let's see. Next, we're going to have a look at drafting documents. And so if you are spending time organizing information, or instead of more of like designing up the learning experiences, this is where Copilot can really shine. So if what you need to create is structured content, especially when you know what you need, but you don't want to start from a blank page, this can be really helpful for a lot of the common workplace documents like lesson plans, pacing guides, outlines, rubrics, meeting summaries, where that structure and clarity matter. You can ask Copilot to create that first draft with specific sections like an overview or progress or next steps. That's going to save time organizing your thoughts and ensuring that nothing important is missed. If you already have content like a policy or a guidance document, you can ask Copilot to reframe it into plain language. You can ask it to do things like create an FAQ. That's going to ultimately make it easier for others to understand while taking some of the lift off of that work for you. It can also help with doing things like adding components to already existing documents. So for example, if you need like an introduction section at the top of the document that does something like explain the purpose, the scope, or the intended audience, this can sometimes be the hardest part. So Copilot can actually take that, review the content of your already existing content and insert that in. Obviously, the key thing to remember is Copilot gives us a starting point, or what we refer to often as like our drafts. It's not the final answer. You can always still review it, edit it, tailor the content to make sure it's accurate and appropriate, especially useful if you're short on time, you're writing something routine, and you just need a clean professional draft that you can quickly refine. So let's try to just like, right, we're going to get a demo again. If you have content and you're practicing with this, you want to reference it, definitely attach those files. we're going to do another demo here for creating lesson plans. So I'm going to jump back to my Copilot chat experience. I'm going to select a new chat. Anytime you're like starting your conversation over with Copilot, like let's say we're switching topics a little bit, that's when you want to reference a new chat. So it's kind of like clearing the board and a clean slate. So we're going to come over to our chat experience and we can ask Copilot to we're going to create a lesson plan for us here. Create a comprehensive lesson plan base. Let's see, create a comprehensive lesson plan for a class on analyzing motifs that includes learning objectives, right? We're going to clarify for Copilot what exactly we want included, prior knowledge, potential student challenges, differentiation strategies, a really helpful one there with the differentiation strategies, and upcoming assignments. So this duration is currently set to 60 to 75 minutes. If I had, let's say, for example, a 50-minute class, I'm going to come over to my prompt with Copilot and I'm going to ask it to modify that for a 50-minute class. We can also, let's say, for example, let's see if it did it here. We have our learning objectives, we have our alignments with Common Core ELA standards, we have any necessary prior knowledge, materials, vocabulary, potential student challenges, differentiation strategies, based on things specific maybe for ELLs or advanced learners. We have our lesson procedure noting that it is also letting us know how much time we have for each section. It gives us a do now. If any of these apply or not apply, right, we get to ask Copilot. For me, for my previous teaching experience, this is great, right? Like I'm going to probably want to modify this a little bit given what I know about my students. But if I don't have to necessarily start by creating this from scratch, that's a huge help for me. Let's have a follow-up prompt. We're going to ask Copilot to help me prepare for common questions likely to arise on this lesson and topic. Share helpful responses in easy to understand plain language. Okay, we got common questions. It's working now. I'm going to wait for it to finish, and then I'm going to ask it to turn that into a clear, student-friendly FAQ. Turn that into a clear, student-friendly FAQ document using plain language. All right. Then, of course, I get to, let's say, copy that, open up a new document, create a new file here, Word document, and we're going to paste that in, and we have our FAQ created pretty quickly. So we're going to look at one more example. I'd like to take a look just briefly at our slides. I would like to kind of take a look at our kind of one of our other final demos, which has to do with presentations. So and Copilot. Now I want to see what my experience is like with PowerPoint in here, but we're going to talk about developing out presentations. So my slides are stuck. Let's see if it's going to work for me. It looks like my screen just froze on my presentation, but that's okay. Um, Presentations. Okay. So Copilot can actually help us with creating those structured presentations. It can even take our content. So let's say we have a lesson plan and we want to turn it into a presentation. It can do things like give us title slides, content, even give us speaker notes. So again, we can modify, but it's going to give us a clear starting point, especially helpful if you're short on time or you need to quickly turn your written material into something that you can present or you can share. And you can, if it gives you speaker notes and you need to adjust those for a different audience, it can help with that as well. Now my slides are frozen, so bear with me here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute and see if I can get that to reset. And then we'll jump back into our demo. Um, while the slides are readjusting, we're gonna come back to our demo here, and I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, so oh, 1 second. Oh, I gotta share my screen. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right, so let's use our Copilot chat experience. And there's a lot of variation here in what we can do depending on the availability of the features that we have with Copilot. So if you're wondering things like, can I do that actually in a PowerPoint? The answer is that it depends on the features and the licensors and things like that that you might have. But what I can do is that lesson plan. Now, I believe, let's say for that lesson plan. I want to come back to my lesson plan in my chat history. And I would like to, let's come back up. We got some great content here from Copilot. Copy that. Actually, we're going to try this cool thing. I'll show this here really quick. I realize we only have about 5 minutes left, but I want to show you this feature in the chat. It's called Edit in Pages. This is a way to, you can use that copy to response feature, but you can also do this thing with pages. I've been playing around with this a lot more and I really like it because it's very easy to go from the content into a document, or you can use a page. So let's say I've created this. This is, I know this is just a quick overview here, but I'm just going to review this, make sure any of that like language is, okay, great. So I'll say I want to turn this into a Word document. I get to come over here and I can choose to export it right into a document. We're going to open that in Word. We've got our lesson plan. I'm going to pop that into the title. Is it saving for me? We're going to call it Analyzing Motifs in Literature. And there's Copilot over there in Word as well. So many different places we're going to find it show up. Let's ask Copilot. We're going to come back to our chat, close out some of these windows. Just one quick demo here. We're going to ask Copilot to take this lesson plan. Oh, it's because of the name of the file. Let me close some things out. I go to my files and see if it's getting the updated. There it is. Okay, this one should work. And design a 50-minute presentation. And there's so much more that we can do with this, right? Like I realize I'm keeping an eye on the time, and I want to make sure I stay true to our end time. But right, what kind of speaker notes do I want? Again, if you have the availability to do this in PowerPoint, you could do it there as well and get the slides built out. Um, this may take a little longer as it's working here. It's doing things like coding. If you ever see that, that means like it's kind of designing, it's doing that work of designing the presentation. But with the we can always pop back over here to get some more. Um, Want to just make sure. Let me get our presentation back up because it is about time for us to wrap up, but I'm going to share my screen while it's thinking. And I just want to talk a little bit here with the few minutes we have remaining on effective prompts. What makes an effective prompt? When we start to use Copilot, right, many of us think it's like our search engines. We're just using brief keywords, expecting that right answer. This totally makes sense. This is how we've worked for a while now, for years. But Copilot will work best when we treat it more conversationally. Instead of keywords, think like full instructions. Clearly tell, it can feel a little strange at first, but clearly tell Copilot what you want, what you will do with that information. Basically, why do you want it to create that? How would you like the result to look? Give it as much detail as you can. The most effective prompts are really specific and detailed. Full sentences, include reference to things like a tone, audience, a format. Something like if we're saying summarize news about, a specific topic, that is not wrong. It's just more vague. So a short request like that will give us, you're going to get something from Copilot either way, but the output might be broader or structured differently than what you had in mind. So the takeaway there that there's no wrong prompts. It's just Copilot works best by understanding our natural, detailed conversational language. Of course, you can always refine the output if the answer isn't quite right. Just follow up, ask it to shorten it, expand it, clarify, reformat, all that good stuff. Thinking of your chats with Copilot as a conversation, not really just a one and done request. And the more guidance you give, the better Copilot can support your work. Um, let's see if we can get what Copilot has produced for us in there. So we've got a presentation. This is great. Let's see. I'm gonna just like briefly see if we can open it. It's created a PowerPoint. So again, first draft, this is, I'm going to want to insert some images. Copilot can help with creating those images as well, but it's a good start. I'm not staring at a blank screen. This is going to give me a good, like, this is pretty solid. Let's see if I put some speaker notes in here. I'm going to scroll up and no speaker notes. Okay, well, I don't think I asked it to, so that's going to be something where I'm going to come back to Copilot and ask it to modify this with speaker notes, maybe insert graphics, student activity slides, like all that good stuff in there. So on that note, I want to check one more time for questions, and thank you all so much for joining our session today. We are here to help. So if you or your organization, right, we've helped so many people with Copilot and launching it confidently. If there's anything that you need from me, our team, or that Planet Technologies can do for you, please feel free to reach out to us. You can contact us via email. Info@goplanet.com. And we're going to just launch a quick poll here for anybody. If you could just give us some feedback on our session today and just give us a rating to let us know, how today's session was for you. And we're going to do it, stars. So feel free to just, it's pretty easy if you can just give us your feedback on straightforward. Hopefully that's coming through in the chat. And I think that's it I want to check one more time for questions. Um, We have a question. Can you speak to data privacy? How to use Copilot to assist with spreadsheet work that contains data like a student name? That's going to go back to what I was talking about regarding the work web toggle and ensuring you're logged in. I will also definitely say refer to your organization. Most organizations have a very specific policy around what types of information to use with Copilot. So see if you can find that information from your organization. Check out Microsoft's Enterprise Data Protection to see what that covers. That can be helpful as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here and thank you all so much for joining our session today. I hope you get out there and get to use Copilot to help you save some time and explore the benefits of this tool. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, a great week and a great weekend. Thanks so much.